It's really a pleasure to be here. And I've been to Riga very many times. I think you say labrit. You know, Estonians only know one word of Latvian. You know what word it is? Saldījums. So, but I've always enjoyed coming here. I mean, when I'm traveling a lot, speaking at international conferences, and I used to do this sometimes by car. And when I was entering the Lithuanian border from Poland, I felt already at home. So Latvia for me is like home, and it's been like that for a long time. I've been in education development for about 20 years now. But I've never been a teacher. I've taught a few lessons, that's about it. So, and I have a lot of respect for teachers. So often when I'm speaking in front of teachers, I'm getting a little bit this shakiness. So the respect is still there. But today's topic is connected to what are the good things about education, and what can we do better? And how can we make more sense of education in the 21st century context where we're at now? Maybe a very little bit about my background. So one of the things that I've built is called Dream Apply, which is a university admissions management platform. And we built this with the intention of helping young people to go to study internationally. Because what we felt was that if we want to have a quick improvement of quality of education, if you go as a young person to study somewhere abroad, you will have a massive expansion of horizon for yourself. So in addition to academic learning, you're getting a cultural learning. And this small dream of helping young people to go to study abroad has now become, I believe, the largest impactors of international learning in Europe. It's operating in 300 universities, and more than 1 million people, young people every year are getting help of the system. But the last 7 years, I've been focusing on seeing how can we help other people that have ideas of how to make something better in education into reality. Because ideas alone are useless. The learners and the teachers benefit only of solutions that they can actually use in making the learning better. And I'm really applauding the previous speaker here because I loved, there were so many really good examples of how we can make learning more useful in the 21st century context. So where I'm coming from, it's like a beautiful heaven for digitalization. So about 99% of the government services are online. Actually, before the COVID started, we had a nice joke that we could make that there was 3 services that were not online. You couldn't get married, you couldn't get divorced, and you couldn't sell or buy property. But now, because of COVID, 2 of these were sold. And the only thing that you still cannot do online is you cannot get divorced. If you want to get divorced, you still need to go to a human counselor first and have a real-life meeting. So to American friends, doing taxes in Estonia takes about 3 minutes. Yeah, and we are not keeping it to ourselves. We are inviting people to come e-residents, and they can take advantage of all these services. And there was a world record done by an e-resident, so a person who has never even been on the ground of Estonia established a company in Estonia in 15 minutes. So it's pretty amazing what you can do with the help of technology nowadays. And why I'm talking about this at all is to put things in perspective. So, and this is again very much in connection with the front speaker, that if we put ourselves in the context where we are, it's very easy to complain how bad life is in the Baltic states. There is so many things that could be done better. But actually, there is a lot of things that are already very interesting here. Now, going a little bit into the topic, why we are here at all. So this is a research done for the European Commission already a long time ago, but it's still relevant. And it shows that automatization is taking over jobs of Europeans. And for many people, this slide is pretty frightening. Will I lose my job to the automatization as well? I believe teachers won't lose their jobs anytime soon to automatization. But all of us probably already have close ones who have lost their jobs because of automatization. And so we are in a situation where life is changing faster and faster. But I would like to ask you, do you know what was the most popular job only 200 years ago in Europe? About 70–80% of people were doing the same job, just to feed their families. Farming, exactly. And this is how, I took out a few countries, how the situation has changed in the last 200 years. So, and if I'm thinking back, for us today, 200 years ago would have been a humanitarian crisis situation. If we would be placed 200 years back, we would feel like we are in a humanitarian crisis. The life quality for an average person has tremendously become better. We don't need to work 16-hour workdays anymore because machines do this for us. So why to be afraid of this? If you actually look back in history and we see that everybody's life has become better, of course, the moment of hardship is happening when we ourselves are losing the job because of automatization. I'm taking the same thing for the American point of view. It's a little bit different design of slide, and that's why I like it as well. So you can see that agriculture massively has changed, but also what's interesting is that manufacturing became much larger, and actually during the last 50 years or so has shrunk a lot. So we don't need people anymore to do this very tedious jobs, because machines are much better at doing this. And actually, humans shouldn't probably do these things because they are very boring and not creating a lot of value to our lives. What's also interesting here is how the education has grown. So the sector itself has become pretty massive and probably is continuing growing in the near future. My question to you would be, do you know when the current education system was popularized? Does somebody know? Okay, I will go back to the previous slide. There is a hint here. More or less 1850s, we agreed that this is a good way to start educating people. So it's a very recent system that we have set up, but all of us inside of the education system feel that it has existed like this forever. It's always been like that. And it's not true. It's a very recent agreement in the society that this way of preparing children for the future is better than the alternatives. And when I'm going to the next slide back, then what I'm seeing happening around us, if I'm summarizing it very shortly, is that I'm seeing that we are shifting in paradigm from industrial era to information era. And my argument is that we built the education system here to support Industry 2.0 situation. And all of us also know what this meant. There was production lines, Henry Ford. And the problem with production lines at this time was that if one person was missing from the production line, the whole line stopped working. So we needed to train basic skills, like this automatic reaction to a whistle. So we will run to a break, and then another whistle, so we know that we have to run back to the production line. And if we didn't do this, the whole production line stopped working. So we can start discussing, okay, what are we still doing in the education system that did make a lot of sense in this Industry 2.0 situation, but might not make any sense and actually might cut the wings of our learners in Industry 4.0 situation. And just to make it more explicit what we are talking about, we've seen a massive change happening inside of the digital era. All of us know this. But I like to go into more details with this Web 3.0 economy. And I'm asking now maybe you as well, how many of your kids that are finishing the 12th grade at the moment, this spring, have actually been acquainted in the school system, in your curriculum, with any of these technologies? Who has thought about this in their school, in their class? Anybody? One person, two people. Very good. Actually, it's much better than my average audience. We have two people who have actually talked about these topics. I'm not saying that everybody should talk about these topics, but this is the reality where our kids are entering after they step out of our school. And they should theoretically feel pretty okay in this environment, no? But the challenge here is that our education system was designed for a different era. We never designed the education system to be updated. The curriculums were never designed to be updated so rapidly. Estonia, until now, is updating its curriculum once every 10 years, the national curriculum. I don't believe it's much different here in Latvia. But the decade in technology, we all know how much change has happened. In marketing, for example, I'm discussing with universities sometimes how they should update their curriculum. It's almost impossible to keep up, because every quarter you have a new technology out there that is massively changing everything that was there before. So just to kind of summarize this a little bit, so I like to use the World Economic Forum's prediction for future skills, because I think this is one of the easiest to understand. They're doing a pretty good work in explaining what are the future skills to be successful. And here are basically the summary of this skill set of 2025. Problem-solving skills, self-management skills, working with people, and technology use and development. And I would argue, having set up also a global company, that the most critical to focus on is self-management. Because if I cannot understand myself, who I am, what's important for me, and I'm not having a relationship with myself as a human being, it's very difficult to put yourself working with other people around you. And it's also very difficult to start working on problem solving or technologies that are outside of us. So I would say that today's education system really needs to look at these parts. I will leave you just with this. So what is innovation of education or in education? Does anybody want to comment on this quickly? I will just show this slide. Does anybody know what this is? Printing press, of course. Already from 1440s. And it's a very simple technology that probably has had the biggest impact on education. It was combining the printing plate with a wine press. I mean, it's good fun. If we go into innovation of education, then just trying to look at old problems in a new way maybe is a good definition. But a lot of people think that, we are thinking a lot about technology context. But technology, I would argue, And I'm also talking a lot about technology. But I would argue that technology is only a tool. Our front speaker was making it very nicely explicit as well. And we can use a screwdriver to hit nails into the wall. It's totally okay. I mean, it's possible. We will succeed, probably. But it would make a lot more sense to use a hammer, of course. And sometimes we think that, okay, to teach kids how to use a screwdriver, we should take the screwdriver and like talk about the history of the screwdriver and talk about, okay, the shape of the screwdriver and maybe the theory of the screwdrivers in the past. And a lot of education system consists of this. But if you would just ask kids, okay, what would you like to build today? And maybe a kid would say, hey, I'd like to build a home for my dog. And then you just have the tools there, and you have some material there, and they will just build, and they will suddenly know how to use these tools. And it will make a lot more sense than learning about the history of the tool and I don't know, physical shape of the tool. So, but there is a lot of other aspects in education that actually need to be talked about and thought about. And I would argue that the most critical is how we look at education as a whole. So, or how we view what education is. I would argue that we are sitting in an era where we see education as we are using the essentialism philosophy for education. Who doesn't know what these philosophies' names mean, Google is going to help, or we can use ChatGPT nowadays to define what they are. But essentialism education philosophy for me means that we are teaching the basic sciences, like mathematics, physics, chemistry, but the downside of this attitude or thing is that we know what needs to be learned. And if we are making this choice that we know what is, as adults, we know what needs to be learned, we might make a critical flaw, because this is not a way to create agency in learners. And there is another school of philosophy which is called democratic education, which invites children and learners to take part in decision making. Okay, we would like to learn about technology today. What, in your opinion, is the most important technology that we should look at the moment? Is there something that you'd like to research yourself? It's a totally different attitude how we think about education. And if we start thinking about this, now I'm going to talk exactly about the same thing as our front speaker. We could start thinking of, okay, what could be the adaptive ways of learning? Because we know all children, all learners are different. How can we help them to achieve the best results themselves? And then I would ask, who has played with Legos when you were younger? Who has played with Legos? Be brave, show your hands. All right, almost everybody has played with Legos. Did you play with Legos before you were 3 years old, or let's say before 4 years old? Who has played with? Okay, we have quite a good number of people. Do you still recall, and of course many of you have children who has played with Legos before age of 3, 4. Do you remember if you're able to set your own learning goals? Do you remember you're able to decide yourself what you want to build out of Legos? Were you able to decide yourself? Of course you were. Were you able to build what you actually wanted to build? So if you decide to build a car, were you able to build a car that was driving? If you decide to build a house, were you able to build a house? So why are we saying that the 7-year-old is not able to make her own learning goals if a 3-year-old is able to do this? And this is exactly, I really love the example of the previous speaker of how we could offer kids a dynamic pathway for learning. because the innate want or need of learning, the mother nature has made us into basically the best learning machines that is out there. We are still better than ChatGPT as humans. So our brain is getting a dopamine injection when we learn something that is exciting for us. And that makes learning more exciting. So we are actually addicted to learning in a way as humans. And in the school system, what we do, we are taking away this possibility of getting this injection of dopamine usually. So most kids are feeling, oh, it's so boring. We're not doing anything interesting here. And at the same time, the education theory is giving us a lot of, and let's say neurosciences are giving us a lot of ideas of how to make this change. And now if you would imagine a pile of Lego blocks on the floor of learning methodologies or things about we could learn in technology, for example, and a learner could take themselves the Lego blocks that they like and put them together in a way that makes most sense to them, exactly as shown in the previous presentation. Why would this not be good? We would use the agency to motivate, to have internal quality of motivation would be much higher of the learners. And we would probably produce healthier and happier human beings as a result. So if we agree that the Lego blocks would be the future of education, then how can we get these Lego blocks? And the best way that I've seen that works is to have people that have ideas of how to create some of these Lego blocks to be empowered to create them. And I'm recommending to use what they call startup model for doing this. But the basic idea is very simple. We have enthusiastic people that are building solutions that solve some of the challenges in education. And maybe a very simple example could be, I have an idea of how to make a new methodology for teaching hyperactive children about multiplication table, for example. And then instead of just sitting with your idea in your dark room and thinking about it, you would be dragged out or supported in making this happen. And there is an ecosystem that helps the new methodology to be spread also to other teachers that might need this. Very briefly, this is the model that we are following in Estonia to create this with the Estonian government. The most interesting part, or the hardest part actually, is helping people with ideas to understand that you could actually realize your ideas and make them into something that learners could benefit from. I will just give one more angle for imagination. Maybe let's look at the video quickly. Right.
Way on your right.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Commander Riker. And if you care to enter, Commander.
I do.
Who likes Star Trek, by the way? Star Trek is an inspiration to so many inventions what we're using every day. Like this one, for example. Tablet computers. So, let's stop the video here. Go back to the slide. And so what we saw in this video is it's kind of it's called holodeck in Star Trek. So it's a learning environment created exactly to be the best learning environment for learning this concrete thing. If we look at our school system, we might have this kind of question, okay, maybe our school system or our school buildings reminds us of something specific, like a factory or a prison, if you like, sometimes. But people have imagined the possible future learning environments for a very, very long time. And this holodeck is automatically creating a learning environment pre-programmed. that is the best supporting your learning that you need to do. But this concept was, the oldest I was able to find was 1950 already. And Star Trek already aired it in 1988. I mean, the main idea is that with today's technology, we basically already are able to do this. So why not to do this? And let's say, one thing that I would invite you to dream together with me about is, who has been to a spice bazaar in their life, in Istanbul, for example? Perfect. So when you're walking into the spice bazaar, this is like a few millennia old concept, probably. And it's been iterated to be better and better over time. And, and you see these beautiful colors of spices there. And when you're walking there, you're kind of you're starting to imagine how you could use these beautiful spices to make a beautiful dinner for your loved ones. And I'm kind of asking, why wouldn't we imagine education future like this? So we could have a so interesting or so inviting environment for learning that where the learners are coming in and they will be so hungry for trying out these ideas and things there. School doesn't need to be what it is today. The spice makers have figured it out. Why not learn from them? And just a call to action for you to think about as well. How can we improve the quality of learning? We have a lot of children that we are working with on a daily basis. Let's invite them to develop solutions that would make it more fun for them, more engaging for them to learn. Maybe some of these will become startups and will start serving kids not only in our country, but globally, and will become success stories. And the teachers, you yourself, can help them to spread. You have a teachers association, I'm sure, here. So everybody wins, actually, in the end. Thank you very much from my side. It's a pleasure.